Relationships in cybersecurity are built on trust, not least between vendor and security teams. But when vendors make claims about their products that can't be true, we lose that trust. So says longtime cybersecurity evangelist and marketer Scott Taschler. In this episode, Scott and I look at 3 vendors' websites who are threading the needle really well on messaging and talk about what they're doing right. We name names, we give specifics, and talk about where it can sometimes go wrong. Don't go away. Welcome to the Cybersecurity Go-to-Market podcast, where we tackle the big question: how can cybersecurity companies grow sales faster? I'm your host, Andrew Monahan. Our guest today is longtime cybersecurity evangelist, engineer, marketer, Scott Taschler. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. You know, you and I have some shared experiences going back 15 years ago at McAfee.
Indeed.
I remember you as let's say a leading light in the SA organization. I don't know. My impression was always that if Sexton or Mike Fay or something like that needed someone to go parachute in to work on a big deal or make a difference or solve problems with a customer, the question was, where's Taschler and how fast can we get him there?
Yeah, I guess on a good day, or I just was too dumb to stop raising my hand. One or the other.
Yeah, you just happened to say yes at the wrong time.
Yeah, exactly. It's my Minnesota upbringing. I can't say no to anything. So
yeah, you're so close to Canada. You're polite and just say yes, right?
100%. Oh yeah.
Well, you were in that role for a while, but then you also, I think you transitioned to an evangelist role. And, you know, in my mind, the evangelist role is the perfect role to have in a company, right? You get all the glory of coming in and speaking and people listening, and you have that other thing, but you're not on the hook for a quota or anything like that.
I was just going to exactly say that. Like, you get to show up and be the smart guy, but you don't have to actually carry a quota. If I could do that again, I would do it in a heartbeat. But yeah, not everything lasts forever. No
one's asking you, are you forecasting that deal, right?
Exactly. They're like, what do you think? Well, 50-50.
And then what was interesting is after your tenure at McAfee, like many McAfee folks, you went to CrowdStrike and you ran the product marketing team at CrowdStrike for a while. Now, how was that transition from being, essentially, I guess, on the sales side, of the technical sales side, and then moving over to be in the PMM?
Yeah, so I started out as a kind of an individual contributor on the product marketing side, and it was moving to CrowdStrike was my first marketing role. As a sales engineer, it was tough because like the marketing people were the people we made fun of, and now I have become what I myself mocked. But what I found was what I came to realize was that in product marketing, it's still very much the same job, or a very similar job anyway. I still needed a solid understanding of what my product did. I needed to know my customers and their pain points. I needed to be locked in on who my competitors were and what my differentiated value was. And then I needed to be able to communicate that in words that my buyers understood. And, I think the main difference is, instead of selling to one customer at a time now, I'm just selling to all of them at once. And so I actually found that transition a really natural transition. And I think a lot of SEs, when they get, I had been an SE 14 years at McAfee, 5 years at other places before that. A lot of SEs start to look around and be like, well, what else is there? And I think the product marketing role is it's a really good natural step for folks who kind of want to lean into that, positioning and messaging and competitive differentiation around their products.
Did you hold yourself to a high standard given that your previous roles?
Yeah, man. I think any good SE prides themselves on, telling it like it is, and being, like your whole ability to build relationships is built on trust, right? So it means I've got to make sure that, if my product doesn't do what the customer wants, I've got to make sure that they know that, because I want to sell them something down the road, at a future date, and maintain that relationship. And I carried a lot of that with me into the marketing world, where, I think a lot of folks want to lean into more aggressive, we are the best, we are the strongest, we will stop everything everywhere all the time. And obviously that's never the case. I've always wanted to make sure that I bring that forward into the stuff that I do.
So let's put this in context. I mentioned that you're at CrowdStrike in a PMM role. You left that a couple of years ago, almost to the month actually,
Yeah,
and you went out on your own. And now what you do is work with a bunch of cybersecurity companies, helping them with their positioning, with product marketing type things,
it's
and you
true.
get the chance to see a wider aspect of the industry. Um, you and I have talked a little bit, but I caught on to a LinkedIn post you made a couple of weeks back, and I'm going to read this out to give this conversation context. And what you said in the post was, let's play a game. Imagine a world where everyone in tech started marketing like we do in cybersecurity. And then you gave some examples. Salesforce, never lose another deal. Asana, hit every deadline every day. Slack, know what your coworkers are going to say before they say it. DocuSign, you'll never touch a pen again. Canva, fire designers, you don't need them anymore, right? And you say, are you cringing yet? These are obvious hyperbole statements. If you saw this in the wild, it would immediately set off your bullshit detector and you'd question the motives of the company who put it there. Trust is lost. So, that was, I enjoyed that post, right? Because we're in this weird world where, 3,700 and something vendors, and, we're trying to make our mark. We're trying to stand out. We're trying to get noticed. And I think what your comment was is that some people get a little bit carried away, let's say, and make claims that are beyond the pale.
I think that's absolutely true, and it comes back to what I said earlier. So I think it really comes down to a matter of trust, right? Like in cybersecurity, 10, 15 years ago, people, you could get away with selling on fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and making these broad sweeping claims. Hey, we're going to take care of your malware problem for you. Awesome. That's the problem I have. And thank you for solving it. But like, today's buyers are a lot more sophisticated. I don't think nobody's getting fooled by that kind of, these kind of exaggerated claims. And if anything, they kind of just, they, best case, they filter through your ears and they don't land at all, and no one hears anything. Worst case, people hear it and they think, oh, this is someone who's, it calls all the rest of your messaging into question. And so I think it's just counterproductive in most situations, and it feels right, especially for people maybe who've come from other industries, or they're like, oh, I want to, like, I'm in cyber, I'm gonna let's do, let's tell people we solve their problems. But I think we know that, the adversaries are smart, and we're all, we're in this industry where we're head to head against somebody who's trying to fight, and our customers are in the middle of this, and I think we are, as an industry, when we're at our best when we're helping to create clarity and not just create confusion with claims we can't stand behind.
Yeah, it's tough, right? And I made a smart ass comment, given that you were at CrowdStrike before. I said, "Where does we stop breaches fit in that realm of hyperbole?" But I think it's definitely something people struggle with, right? And I describe it like threading the needle, because sometimes one person's hyperbole is like, "Well, that's kind of
Mhm.
interesting," right? And sometimes one person's, "Well, that's very realistic," is very boring, and it's tough to get it all figured out. So what we thought we'd do on this episode is, let's not focus on the negative. Let's focus on the positive. Let's look at three companies where Scott's kind of picked them out and said, look, here's three companies I think are doing this well. Their message on their website is threading the needle quite nicely, let's say. And we want to pick out some good things about it. So let me, for those of you on YouTube watching this, you can obviously look at what I'm sharing on the screen. For those not, we'll try and describe what we're seeing and the words, etc., so that you can get a sense as well. So the first company you picked out, Scott, was Lacework. Let's pull that up right there. So, what did you like about the Lacework message that we're looking at?
Yeah, I thought there were a couple of things that jumped out immediately. Um, Obviously, right there at the top, there are two things that help me out a lot. One is, I think it's nice that they've focused on a very clear category, CNAP, Cloud Native Application Protection. I should know that acronym, but they well, that's a problem for another day. We should talk about. Uh, But so immediately I know, like, hey, this is what they have, and this is what it does. And if I'm in the market for a CNAP solution, I know this is something I'm interested in. So okay, so that's good. But also, then they've got this focus on speed as a primary benefit. And one of the things that I like about that is it's not an absolute statement, right? It's like we are the fastest. We are it's like we're going to improve your speed. We're gonna help you, get in front of these adversaries that are already, doing more damage in less time. There's no FUD. There's no exaggerated promises. It's just like, hey, this is the space we're in, and this is the primary benefit we're going to deliver for you.
So the headline above the fold is "Time is cloud security's number one adversary," and then the paragraph underneath says, "Reduce risks and stop threats fast. Developer and security teams collaborate and accelerate with a unified CNAP." So there's three mentions of time and speed in there. There's time, there's fast, and there's accelerate. So that's what you picked up on there.
Yeah, and then and I really like this time theme because they keep coming back to it. So as you scroll down the page, you'll see that there are sub benefits underneath there, and each one of those, sorry, up just a scotch there, is so you can see they talk about building securely, prioritizing risks, protecting your workloads, and staying compliant. And if you click into each one of those, like they have additional content that links back to the, hey, here's how we speed up different portions of your workflow. So it's like it's a nice continued theme, but it also provides meat behind it, right? So it's like, hey, we speed you up. Well, now I'm wondering, like, well, how? Well, we do it here. And each one of those has features that map to it. Like here's the feature that speeds up this portion of the workflow that helps you get in front of your adversaries. So
so under prioritize risks, they say don't waste time on harmless risks. Under protect workloads, they say find known and unknown threats faster. And then it's similar but different. Under stay compliant, put audits on autopilot. So it's not taking up your own time, I guess.
Yeah. So I think immediately I kind of know what they stand for. I know what they do. I have some validation about how they do it, and then I also like these quantified outcomes here, right? So you can see, they talk about, hey, with our tool you can replace 2 to 5 other tools in your environment. I'm like, oh, that's good. I definitely would prefer to have fewer tools in my environment. 81% of their customers see value in less than a week, and 100-to-1 reduction in alerts. Like those are all very specific, measurable outcomes that I think provide some validation to their ability to provide value.
One thing I would say, just to be slightly negative, I would believe the 100-to-1 if it wasn't 100-to-1. It was 98-to-1 or 103-to-1.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I had that exact same thought on 81%. I'm like, oh, 81%, that's a very specific number. They must have measured that.
Right. That's what we think, right? There's a credibility that comes from specificity.
Indeed.
So, and then the final point you had was, I think, a bit further up.
I really like that their call to action, right? So they're up there in the top right. Every tech website on planet Earth, I think, has a bubble up there. That's and usually it's start now, contact sales,
schedule a demo,
schedule a demo, right? It's like, hey, and at this point, like, man, I don't want to talk to somebody yet. But I do want to know more about your product. And so the idea that they've clicked they have watch demo as their primary call to action, I think is great. And you can actually just, if you click on that, I think you can enter just an email address, and in fact, and then you go to a bunch of demo videos that are actually pretty good. So anyway, I thought that call to action is particularly effective, because it's it's something that I'm willing to do at this stage. I'm oftentimes, like I as I'm just beginning to dig in on my journey, understanding what these guys do.
Are you a fan of the self-controlled demo? The choose your own adventure, just to get a feel for what's going on?
Man, I don't know that I've seen too many of those, but I absolutely, I would, I like, I mean, even if it's just a matter of a few bite-sized recordings that have like workflows. Hey, are you interested in compliance? Well, here, click this in 90 seconds. Here's our compliance
Right.
journey. Um, I think that kind of thing is really powerful because again, not everybody, different people are going to come into this from different perspectives, and being able to get them what they want in the moment they want it is with the minimal hassle is going to keep them engaged.
So some good things on here, and they didn't fall into the hyperbole, right? They didn't say
Ah,
stop risks all the time and completely eliminate risks and things like that. It was actually kind of interesting how they zeroed in around the time
mm.
idea.
I think even also kind of, I mean, with maybe low use of buzzwords also, like it would, obviously CNAP is I don't think we can 100%, you can't like say we're not going to use any buzzwords because sometimes they're important and they're a good way to communicate a complicated concept with a single word. But I think that's another thing, right? They're not throwing around zero trust, next gen, blah blah blah. It's all just it feels very authentic and clear, and I don't know, that's why I liked it.
All right, let's move on to number 2. All right, what do you like about Brinqa?
Okay, so number one, again, I think the focus on a very clear category, in this case, vulnerability management. You can see it, and actually, I really like the way that they brought that in. So about right there, again, first screen above the fold, they have their NASCAR logos of different customers on their website, which is fairly common. I really like the way they phrase it, though. The best vulnerability management programs run on Brinqa. I'm like, uh, and I think the genius part of a statement like that is it really puts the customer at the center of makes the customer the hero, right? Like, hey, we're we're here as an enabler to make you awesome, right? Do you want to run one of the best vulnerability management programs? Then guess what? Like people who look like you use us. Anyway, I just think it's a very common chunk of a website to have, but I really like how they phrase it, and it also makes it very clear what it is that they're doing, what category they're delivering.
So the what we're looking at here is the headline is precisely reduce the risks that matter. And then the sub paragraph underneath is stop wasting resources on low risk findings across infrastructure, cloud, and application security.
Hmm?
And then they've got the headline that Scott talked about, the best vulnerability management programs run on Brinqa. And they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 logos sitting right there, all of which you recognize. They're not random weird companies out of,
Hmm.
out of Turkey or something like
Hmm. Yeah, and I think again they've got a really good focus on their primary benefits, right, which are prioritization and efficiency, and they then kind of go on to actually dig into the problems as you scroll down about why prioritization is so hard in vulnerability management. Which it shocks me that vulnerability management is not a solved problem in our world. It's not like I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be shocked. I don't know. I don't know that we've solved any problems in cybersecurity. Have we? Like viruses? Nope. Phishing? Nope. Vulnerability management? Nope. Uh, we'll get there one of these days.
that. That's all about
Um,
reducing risk, not eliminating, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's what they talk about here. So again, they're being kind of straightforward about what the problems are, why they're so hard, and I one of the things I think is interesting that they focus so high up on their webpage about the problems, which you don't see a whole lot. But I think in this case, because they're in such a well established space, they're almost surely going to be displacing someone, right? When you go in, it's not like you're probably going in and someone's like, "Oh, we should be doing vulnerability assessment. That's interesting. Tell me more."
Right.
Uh, so I think it's a good way to kind of get everybody on the same page. Like, we've been doing this for a long time, and it's hard. Here's why it's hard. Tuk, tuk, tuk. And I think by this point, like most people who are going to recognize themselves and realize that, oh, this is a solution that solves a problem that I actually have.
And what I like about this is that they're bashing the competition without bashing the competition. What they didn't say is, why do current tools suck? They just say, why is it so hard to prioritize and reduce what matters?
Yeah.
And then they go into impossible backlog, fragmented visibility, ownership complexity, things like that. It's kind of quite subtle, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it, because to bash a competing solution in a lot of ways is bashing the person and the organization running that solution. So I think that's a smart take on their part, because you don't want to call somebody's baby ugly. You just want to help them acknowledge that they got a challenge and that you have a tool that can help.
Now, you called out a couple of things here. You said a little bit of hyperbole because they talk about the impossible backlog.
Yeah.
They use the word nightmare on here somewhere as well. What's your feeling about that?
Yeah. So I think it's there to be provocative, right, and to create to create an emotional reaction. And I'm not saying that it I'm not giving them a big black mark for that. I'm not sure that those were I would use those same words if I was the product marketing guy putting this message together. So yeah, I think it, the risk of that is, someone goes, well, I mean, it's not an impossible backlog. I mean, we're dealing with it for years. It's just causing me a lot of stress, and so when they do that, then they start they're like, well, now they've started pulling a thread, and now the human reaction is to go, well, what else? What other holes can I poke in this argument? and that's not where that's not where you want your audience to be.
I like the direction, though, right? In a world full of bland, logical, sensible statements about things, to put in those emotional words, put in the nightmare, put in the crumbling under the volume and things like that. I mean, if I'm sitting there and I'm running a vulnerability management program, I've got my two other tools, and it's just the backlog's getting me down, and it's like becoming a nightmare to manage all this stuff. That's going to connect with me, right?
For you, maybe, I think this is the interesting dark art of messaging, and it's so interesting in cyber because the way our natural inclination is to lean into that kind of apocalyptic language, right? And you've just run the risk of people being just tired, and to lean into the like I said, are you in a nightmare situation and all this stuff? And I'm like, right. even if I am, you've just made me more anxious about it, man. Like I just want to just help me figure this out.
Right.
Which right. It's a classic marketing move, right? It's called, you define the problem and then you agitate it for a little while, and that riles up emotions and hopefully drives a call, drives somebody to act. It happens a lot in our industry, I think, and so I think at some point it backfired.
Well, Scott, let's learn a little bit more about you personally. I've got a list of 35 questions here, and what we're going to do is spin the wheel to figure out which of these questions that we're going to ask. All right. So, by the way, my wheel is highly optimized. It's next gen. It uses advanced AI. It's been audited by one of the big four to say this is the most random way to generate some questions to ask.
Fantastic. My guests. I can't wait. Bring it on.
Quite the experience. You might even say, actually, that it's not a wheel but a donut, and we're spinning the cyber donut. So just keep that in mind. All right, let me go ahead and spin
all the way down.
All right, question number 29. How did you first make money as a kid, Scott?
Oh, first make money as a kid. Well, let me tell you, I got one of my very early jobs in high school. Little known fact, the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, which is one of the finest Renaissance festivals in the entirety of North America, where I started as a as a high schooler selling steak sandwiches behind the booth. But after 3 years of that, I made the jump to the entertainment, where I became I took on the personality of Opie the Wise, who was a random Renaissance Festival peasant, and now I can't go to the Ren Fest ever again because I'm so sick of it.
So you went from a peasant to a career in cybersecurity sales.
It's a pretty natural step. We can go through the other couple steps in the middle if you want.
No, that's awesome. All right, let me spin the wheel again.
All right.
All right, question number 2. What's one of your more embarrassing or memorable moments in your career in sales and marketing?
All right. I'm going to go back to a project as a sales engineer. We at McAfee, we had a project to record bite-sized videos of a bunch of different stuff. They were going to be used for social and a bunch of other things. And they tapped the SE team to do this, to kind of record, to be the subject matter experts in different things. And as I was sitting there on the couch with my wife recording videos, my wife leans over and says, "You know what? You should record a video. How do you pronounce McAfee? Because nobody knows how to do it." And I'm like, haha. So I bang out this video, which I thought was going to be and I submitted it, and I didn't tell anybody. I just thought it would get my manager would see it, and it just kept getting approved and approved and approved. And so that was the video I was known for. Out of all the great content I produced, that one had 10 times more views than any other video in the entire program. And it's still out there on YouTube if you go find it. So that one will follow me to my grave for sure.
That was given to new hires, right? Because that was one of their questions. How do I pronounce the name of this company that I'm joining?
That's right. Is it McAfee? Something, yeah.
There's only 2-3 options. I love that. I remember that video, actually. It's funny. It's not why I remember you, but maybe some people do. All right, let's spin this wheel for the last time. What is the story about you getting into your first job in cybersecurity?
Well, it was, I think, probably like a lot of people our age, it was completely by accident. I actually went to college, but I did get into cybersecurity right out of college, which was pretty rare that was 1995. I was an electrical engineer, and I wanted to design circuits and computer parts and stuff. And I got hired by a local company here in Minneapolis by the name of Secure Computing Corporation. They hired me as a hardware guy, and I was working on they had some government contract to develop an encrypted SCSI hard drive controller, and I was the hardware guy on this project, and I programmed this little SCSI chip, and it was ultimately it never came to market, but then I'm working there, and they're like, "Oh, you're a crypto guy. We're going to put you on this other crypto project, right?" And so then all of a sudden I was like, I never touched a piece of hardware again after that. So now I was developing software, and then I made the move to another, and then it also snowballed from there. My next job was a sales engineer job for a startup here in Minneapolis, and I followed that SE track for a long time after that.
Wow, that's incredible. Your career, so secure computing, Entrust, McAfee and Crowdstrike were big. I mean, that's quite a run of well-known legacy companies in cyber, right?
There you go. You've left off the ones that no one's ever heard of, but yeah, absolutely.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, let's move on to the third one, which is Panther. All right, so we're looking at Panther right here. I'll quickly describe it. So the headline is Transform Cloud Noise into Security Signal. And the subheading, the paragraph is Panther delivers code-driven detection and response at petabyte scale without the overhead or cost of traditional SIEMs. Stop ignoring your cloud logs and start generating security insights.
Again, I think a nice no nonsense description of what what they do and what their primary value is, right at the top. That first paragraph gives them, brings out their differentiated capabilities, right? So it's even in just a there's not even any real graphics up here or anything, right? It's like a few words and a sentence, and I've kind of got a good feeling for who they are, what they do, and I can make I've got enough information to make a decision about whether it makes sense for me to keep scrolling.
Yeah, yeah. And interesting what you're saying about the previous one, where the customers that hear the story. Two things here. One is actually underneath this, they've said loved by the world's best security engineering team. So similar theme right there. I love that.
100% the same. I love that too. Absolutely.
My question for Panther would be, how do you reword that secondary paragraph where Panther's not the hero of the story? Rather than saying Panther delivers code-driven, blah, 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 how can you say our customers, I don't know, change the wording so the customer is the hero of that story?
Yeah, that's a good call out. Always best to make the customer the hero, because that's ultimately, they're the ones with the problems to solve. We're just here to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi to help you solve it.
There you go. You're using words I understand. What else do you like about it?
I think if I were to criticize just a tiny bit, I was a little I knew the capabilities, like what this thing could do, but I wasn't really sure where they fit into like an existing SOC or a security architecture. I got to wondering, like, do they replace my SIEM, or are they going to augment my SIEM somehow? So it's very clear they're doing some analysis and threat detection and alerting on cloud logs and cloud alerts. But it took a little while to figure out like how they fit into that. So it makes me wonder, like, so for example, there's not a specific category listed here. Code driven detection and response is it's a capability, but I'm sort of missing like a buzzword or an analyst category that, and that's important, because I need to know, like, what am I comparing this to? Am I comparing this to a SIEM? Am I comparing this to is it a CNAP? Is it I'm not entirely, I didn't come out of this section with a good mental frame of where this fits in the overall landscape.
And that's so important, Scott, right? Because 3,768 or something vendors right now in cyber. When someone comes to something, I'm trying to make sense of all the categories that I know inside cyber, which is the one this is closest to, so I can at least start putting a frame around it, right? I think that's what people coming to websites have to kind of do first of all. What is this similar to what I know already? And something just by saying like CNAP or SIM or whatever might help do that.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't want to call it negative ones necessarily, but we did find some examples where there was the hyperbole, and people tend to get into absolute language, right? They talk about never or always or eliminating or every risk and things like that. Is that the kind of common things that you're seeing in sites where perhaps they aren't quite threading the needle all that well?
Yeah, I think one word that really kind of every time I see it raises my spidey sense a little bit is when you see the word zero, and that could be zero trust or zero noise or zero false positives or zero dwell time, or like anytime I see that. And it's like, zero, like really zero, like, and again, and it's like I see it, and it's zero false positives, great example. Like, come on, like you can't really, like, there's never zero false positives. There's always an opportunity, and you, because you don't know every environment and everything, So when I see that, I'm like, okay, and they're doing it deliberately to get a causal, like, again, it's provocative, but I don't find it particularly credible, and it makes me call into question. Then, even if it's in a list of other, 5 other benefits that are credible, it makes me call all of them into question.
There's one vendor out there, and I forget the exact wording they use, and I don't want to name them, but I'd be interested to get your take on this. They say something like, uh, reduce your cloud security risk, and then they use the word guaranteed. What does that do to your spidey sense?
It definitely causes questions. I think it. So I mean, when they say guarantee, then that implies that there's some kind of a financial contract behind the scenes, and so it's like, okay, well, wait, if what's it does, like if you're making this massive claim and then you say guaranteed, then there better be a find out more link, because I want to know. Okay, tell me about this guarantee. Are you really going to stand behind this? What are the under what circumstances? What's on the line for you if you don't meet this amazing claim? Um, I find it's a I think it's a guarantee of some sort is, I think, a positive thing. We see it a lot, like in the MDR space. A lot of MDRs are bringing out like breach prevention warranties and things of that nature. I think that's a super positive claim, right? Or a super positive movement. It's like, hey, we're here to stop breaches in your environment, and if something gets through, um, we have skin in the game, right? Like that's a fantastic piece of validation, in my opinion.
And I had the same opinion. It kind of made me stop, and I like you. I had to process a little bit and say, "Well, what do you mean guaranteed?" I didn't. My immediate reaction was, "Well, complete BS." It actually had me, huh? So that might be what they were going for at the time. Let me wrap up quickly by saying a couple of things. I think one of the interesting things is, we talked about answering the question, what do these guys do? And the other question often to think about is, well, how is it different to the other people I know in this space? So you pick the subcategory in cyber, you do CNAP, for example, or you do a SIM or DSPM, wherever it might be. Um, what I'm looking for is to be able to say, okay, I get it, right? These guys say that they're the fastest, or they're the one, whichever one it was, zero to run time. I'm looking for something like that to say this is their unique point of view. This is their approach that I'm trying to understand why they're different. I can't do that if they use a whole bunch of bland words, right? If it's the same words, and I want to pick on DSPM as a category. I think if you go through the vendors in there, frankly, a lot of it sounds a little bit samey to me. But I'm not a sophisticated technology buyer. Maybe there's stuff in there that I'm not picking up on, but it seems a bit samey to me.
Yeah, I can see. And it's a fairly new space, so I think there's people are out there, and a lot of new, in a young space, it's like a lot of new products come out really fast, and then there's you have to sort of check a bunch of boxes to prove that you're a player. And so I think as a space like that matures, I think you end up, first, some of the players fall out and or get acquired, and second, the differentiation gets to be a lot more clear as the space kind of develops and matures.
Yeah, and some of them are doing well inside DSPM for sure, and it is an interesting space. It's consolidating literally week by week right now, so it's kind of a fascinating thing to watch. Scott, listen, we're at the end of the time here. Loved having you on, catching up, and going over this. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, check me out at LinkedIn. Just let's search for. I think I'm the only Scott Taschler out there, so hit me up anytime.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today.
All right, thank you. Cheers.